Hi, I am Nicolas Sanchez. I am from the group 202, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the cell, the prokaryotic, and the eukaryotic cell. I hope you like it, enjoy it, and learn a little bit about these cells. Thank you. What is the cell? The cell is the basic structure and function unit about all the living beings. If there's a living being that have cells, so they are little um, organisms. They are very small that we can see it without a microscope. There they have some structure. They are independent units consisting of plasmatic membrane that their main function is that they surround the cell and acts like a border from the outside environment. They also contain cytoplasm, which is a mixture of jelly-like fluid and other structures called organelles. The fluid portion of the cytoplasm is called cytosol, and it's composed by a jelly-like substance, water, cells, and diverse organic molecules. All cells contain genetic material, particularly DNA, which stores information to make new cells and internal components. The cells are divided into the prokaryotic cell, which is the first organism on the planet. They are unicellular and they don't have a nucleus. There are 1 to 2 micrometers in diameter. We also have the eukaryotic cell, which they have a nucleus and other organelles enclosed by a membrane. They are more complex, and the main difference is also they have 10 to 100 micrometers diameter, and they are specially these for animals, plants, fungi, and protists. That's it. I hope you like it and enjoy it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aisha. I am from Team 1 and today I'm going to explain the characteristics of living things and the differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. The first characteristic of living things is that they are made of one or more cells, the smallest unit of life. The second one is that they have a metabolism, the change of molecules to energy, mostly those molecules are food. The third one is maintain homeostasis, which is the maintenance of internal conditions like the temperature of our body, etc. The fourth one is respond to stimuli, which is adjust and respond to changes like the monarch butterfly that flies to another place because it's too cold. Number five is that they possess DNA in their genetic material. Number six is they grow they increase the number, size, and volume of cells, like the plants when they grow. The number seven is that they reproduce. They transmit information sexual or asexually to their offspring. And the last characteristic is that they evolve. They adapt to their environment to live better. Now, the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic is that prokaryotic were the first organisms in the planet. They are unicellular, they lack of a nucleus, they are divided into categories, bacteria and archaea, and their internal structure is of 1 to 2 micrometers. While an eukaryotic cell, they are much more complex, they are highly diverse, they have a nucleus. It is surrounded by a membrane that separates it from the cytoplasm, and they range in a diameter from 10 to 100 micrometers. Well, this is all from me, and thanks for your attention.
Hi, my name is Ana Sofia Marin Moncada, and today I'll talk about the history of the microscope and the cell theory. The microscope is a tribute to human creativity and the need to see. Thanks to this invention, it has been possible to satisfy the curiosity to observe tiny worlds and explore the secrets of life by studying cells. The creation of simple magnifying glasses in the year 1000 is regarded as the first microscopes, including the one of Seneca, which is a transparent spherical container filled with water. In the late 16th century, Hans and Zacharias Janssen made the first compound microscope when they placed one lens at the top and another one at the bottom of a tube. It was possible to have different magnifications if the length of the tube was changed. In 1665, Robert Hooke designed a microscope made up of three lenses, allowing to magnify samples between 20 to 50 times their actual size. The optical microscope remains as an essential instrument for appreciating the details of these fundamental units of life. The optical microscope is an instrument made up of a mechanical system, which includes a series of components that give stability to the microscope, and an optical system, which comprises a series of elements that generates the magnified image. The compound optical microscope uses a visible light as an illumination source. The light passes through the sample and then is refracted by a set of converging lenses that direct the light so that the image reaching our eyes is larger. Now, for the cell theory. This theory was proposed by Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow. The cell theory has been one of the most significant generalizations in biology. This theory proposed that all living things, regardless of their differences, have in common that they are made up of cells. The cell theory is based on the following postulates. All living things are made up of cells, therefore they are morphological and structural units of all organisms. The second postulate is that it is a physiological unit of every living being and it performs all the functions of a living being, such as assimilation, respiration, excretion, etc. Number 3. All cells come from another persisting cell. And lastly, the cell contains hereditary material DNA for all its morphological and physiological characteristics, which will be passed on to its offspring cells. And this is it for the microscope history and the cell theory.
For the cell to stay alive, it must exchange material with its environment, and this occurs through the membrane. What the membrane does is that it allows the movement of substances through passive or active transport. If we talk about the passive transport, it does not require the supply of energy and occurs by osmosis, diffusion, and facilitated diffusion. The diffusion is the process by which molecules move from a higher concentration area to a lower concentration area without expending any energy. And the energy that allows diffusion is supplied by kinetic energy, and that's why the molecules have no control over the speed or direction of diffusion. The osmosis is the process by which water molecules pass through a semi-permeable membrane from the highest also concentration area to the lowest, and this process will occur by moving the molecules from the solution with the highest concentration to the solution with the lowest concentration. The third process of the passive transport is the facilitated diffusion, and this process requires proteins. That are two types of proteins. The first one is the channel proteins that open and closes to allow the molecules to pass through, and the second one is the transporter proteins, and this one changes the shape to allow them to move from one side to the other. In the case of active transport, it does require the supply of energy, and it is thanks to two processes, the endocytosis and exocytosis. Basically, they are the opposite thing. Endocytosis is when the cell needs to obtain material from an extracellular environment, and then they are engulfed by the membrane and transported through the vesicles. This process contains three activities that are pinocytosis, receptor mediated endocytosis, and phagocytosis. The exocytosis is the opposite as the endocytosis, and it is when the cell needs to invest energy to release certain substances.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Sanchez Guajardo. I'm from group 202, and I'm going to present levels of organization and homeostasis. So, levels of organization. One of the most important things in the body is the organization. So imagine that levels of cellular organization function like a set of matryoshkas. In the order of atoms, molecules, organelles, cells, tissue, and organs and systems. So a set of atoms forms a molecule, molecules form organelles, tons of billions of cells performing in a specific way, it's a tissue, tissues form organs, and a group of organs forms systems, such as the digestive system, respiratory systems, or other systems. Now, homeostasis is the ability to maintain internal conditions despite of the conditions of the outside. And This is a process of constant change to compensate the outside that could damage the internal systems. Hippocrates was the first to propose the concept of body balance, and he also suggested that there were 4 vital fluids that were associated with personality. Blood that was associated with friendliness and the skin, the beautiful skin. Phlegm with discouragement and forgetfulness. Yellow bile with bitterness and a bad temper. And black bile, which was associated with the fear and laziness. In the beginning of the 19th century, it was debated whether the microorganisms caused illness or if they were a natural reaction of the body to the changes. Then in 1929, a psychologist named Walter Cannon named homeostasis the action of the regulatory mechanism, which now this term is used as automation.
Hello, my name is Ana Sofia Larautello. I'm from Group 202 and I'll talk about the topics pregnancy, addictions, and obesity. The pregnancy is when a fetus is growing up inside a woman's uterus. This happens when a sperm fertilizes an egg after it releases the ovary during the ovulation. During the pregnancy exist 3 stages that are divided in the first trimester, the second trimester, and the third trimester. In the first trimester is when a sperm penetrates an egg and this goes through the woman's fallopian tubes and then this goes to the uterus there is where the fetus is growing up. Then we have the second trimester, that is if you go to an ultrasound you can see the sex of the baby and you can see if the baby is having problems or defects. Then the third trimester is when the bones of the baby are growing up or the baby is having more functions like the baby can open the eyes, the baby is having vision, the baby is hearing, and having the cerebral palsy. The second topic is addiction. An addiction is a chronic dysfunction of the brain system that involves a reason. The characteristic of addiction is drug seeking, and use that is compulsive or difficult to control, and despite harmful consequences. There are many types of addictions. It's not only about drugs. Also, it can be the addiction of video games, alcohol, cigarettes, exercise, and all of these addictions generates consequences. In the addiction exist 4 stages. The experimentation, that is the uses or engages out of curiosity. The social or regular, that is the uses or engages in social situation or for a social reason. The problem or risks, that is, uses or engages in extreme way with disagreed for consequences, and the dependency, that is, the uses or engages in a behavior on a daily basis or several times per day, despite possible negative consequences. And the last topic is obesity. The obesity is defined as abnormal or excessive fat accumulation that presents a risk to health. And according to the World Health Organization, a body mass index over 25 is considered overweight, and over 30 is obese. And the symptoms in a respiratory way is the accumulation of a fat under the diaphragm and in the chest wall can cause shortness or breathing and choking. In a cardiovascular way, the obese subject is at a higher risk of developing arterial hypertension, heart failure, ischemic heart disease, and venous thrombosis. And a metabolism of an obese person includes high blood pressure or high cholesterol, which damage arteries in the heart and elsewhere. Then exist 2 types of obesity: central obesity, in which the fat accumulates mainly in the trunk, and peripheral obesity, more frequent in women, in which the fat accumulates above all from the waist down.